Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at a classic example of a helicopter maneuver, pylon takeoff and landing. Now right now we're sitting here in lovely Brazil. Cristo Redentor is actually right over there on my left, for those who are keeping track. And we have this lovely little helipad, which is not in the greatest of places. You can actually see from my example here that not only is it difficult to get to if you look at the little road coming up to it, but you've also probably observed that we don't have a lot of room to get in the air. So it's going to make things interesting for us. So one of the biggest challenges we have here, of course, is not only getting it stable, but we're also going to have to be thinking about settling with power. That's simply when we are at a very, very high angle of attack on the rotor, and we're basically digging into our own turbulence, which is sitting all around us right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to execute a standard takeoff. I'm going to grab my little controller. Again, this flight sim, it won't even let me jerk the controller all over the place, mostly. And we're going to go ahead and make the letter J. And of course, we don't see much of the left side of the letter J just because of the way they do it. So I'm going to pull my stick back just a little bit and move it to the left. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my collective just a bit. Now, this is a 407, so it really takes very, very little to get this thing going. And the big thing we want to watch out for here is as the rotor leaves ground effect, see how it's starting to sink a little bit? We need to gently apply power to be able to smoothly transition. We don't want to use too much angle of attack on that rotor because that could be potentially very, very dangerous for us. Like I said, that whole idea of settling. Once we've exited ground effect, we can very, 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 very gently apply that power to go ahead and continue our vertical climb. Again, helicopters, they don't like this maneuver, so we have to be very gentle with it. Looks good to me, and I'm just going to wait until I have myself enough clearance around the obstacles. Notice I'm not jamming on the collective here. I don't want to reduce RPM, and I'm just concentrating on basically maintaining the same spot on the ground. We do have a little bit of a wind today to make things interesting for us. I'm looking around. I'm getting a little warning on check instruments. That means we're starting to get a little hot. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to transition to a conventional takeoff here. So I'm going to very, very lightly tip forward. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let the air flow through my blades, basically get us that translational lift. Again, not doing anything too aggressive here. If we do anything aggressive at this phase, we're going to end up, like I said, settling with power. And the helicopter will start flying itself in just a moment here. There's about 40 knots. There's about 45 knots. And the helicopter just got a lot more stable. Just like that. Not bad. Now that we're kind of conventional, you can see all my power settings are returning to a more reasonable level. And again, that's why they would call that basically a high-performance takeoff for a helicopter. Because even though we're relatively light, we don't have unlimited power kind of thing. Unlimited power! You know what I mean. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and make our way up here. And we're just going to say hello real fast. And then we're going to come back down the hill. And we're going to go take a look at our little landing pad and try to get this thing safely down. And it's going to be kind of an interesting process for us. Because the trick is never come to a complete stop. That's kind of the general rule if you can make it easier on yourself, so to speak. But we also have the problem where we don't have a lot of room to land. So that's going to make it a very fun little landing for us today. So we'll go say hi. We can't come all the way up here without thinking about the, let's see, I think the song is The Killers. It always makes me think of this particular location here. And yes, that thing really is that big. And the thing I'm very impressed with is until you come and actually look at how high up we are at the moment, and I realize somebody had to come up here and kind of get all this installed on that sketchy of a chunk of rock. I don't know. It's just my opinion. It's just very, very impressive. Very, very, very impressive. I think it's cool. All right. So now we're going to get ready to go ahead and set this thing down. So I'm going to go ahead and enjoy my nice little beautiful view here. Again, I imagine a little gondola that kind of comes up there and stuff like that. Fortunately for us, we don't have to deal with the gondola. We can just enjoy the little flight. And then we're going to get lined up for a landing here. So now landing this thing on something that small is relatively challenging. The reason that it's challenging, of course, is like I mentioned before, we're going to be under a very, very, very high power setting. And to couple that, of course, we have very little room in which to operate safely. So as we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and keep ourselves well away. By the way, if you're wondering where it is, it's that. And you can get an idea of just how tiny that thing is. And it gives you, makes you feel pretty good when you know that you're the one who has to be the one who was the one on the ground. So as with all helicopter descents, one thing we want to always watch out for is descending too quickly, because especially at low speed, we end up descending with power. That's bad news for most helicopters, so we want to try to keep it pretty stable on our approach, giving ourselves plenty of room to kind of come around here. If you're looking for a general rule of thumb, about 500 feet per minute is usually plenty. And of course, if you've got a good forward speed, you don't have to worry about it too much. One thing you do not want to do, of course, is you don't want to chop the power or anything, or chuck the nose over anything, because you'll just chop your tail off with your own rotor. And while that's noisy, it doesn't do a very good job of keeping the helicopter flying safely. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come on, make ourselves a nice gentle turn here. And again, we're keeping this easy. One of the things we want to do on a helicopter is we really, really want to take our time. We do not want to like zip through this. This is not a 172. This is not a 152. This is nothing like that. And as long as we have that forward motion going, you'd be surprised at how easily controllable this thing is going to be. It's basically a really, really funky airplane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give myself some nice wide S-turns here. I'm going to be a little careful. We're getting all sorts of nasty turbulence off the side of that mountain, making things very, very fun for us, naturally. And the interesting thing is my collective is actually on the floor. You can get an idea of just how much lift this thing has going to that. So there's our position right there. You can see it's ready to go. We'll go ahead and bring ourselves over here to the right. There we go. Very nice. And I'm going to go ahead and start bringing in some more collective. As you bring in collective, remember you're going to have to apply quite a bit of foot to compensate. And we're going to start slow. Wow, this thing I just wanted us to climb. We just caught a huge updraft there. Welcome to landing in the mountains, by the way. And now we can see ourselves a little position down there. So now we're going to run into a bunch of new challenges. The one challenge, like I was mentioning before, of course, is obstacle clearance. The other challenge that we're going to be dealing with is the fact that we're basically don't want to come to a complete stop. So it creates this interesting combination of problems where we basically need to get the helicopter down at the same time as we don't want it to stop. So it becomes a fun little balancing act for us. And that's, again, why helicopters are so much fun. Now, another way to visualize this problem, of course, is if you were landing on an aircraft carrier. You're actually doing the same thing, relatively speaking, which makes it fun. So we've got ourselves doing relatively slow here. We're about 20, 25 knots is my estimate here. And we're coming down at about 500 feet per minute, which is aligning us up pretty well. So what I want to be able to do is I don't want to descend straight down onto it. We could certainly do that. But again, the danger there is that when we do things like that, we're going to be descending into our own turbulence, as I was mentioning before. So instead what we're going to do is you're basically going to try to come up over where those trees are. And this is the nice advantage of taking off and landing in this direction that we're coming from. And we're just going to slow down. Of course, at this point, everybody who's in their car would start to slow down and look up at us and everything like that. And we're just going to take a quick little look here. I appreciate the fact they put the giant P on there, and they also give us the big arrows to tell us what direction to approach in and everything like that. They get it. And what we're going to do is we're just going to gently settle down onto this thing. Now, of course, like any helicopter landing, it's all about being as gentle as possible. If the helicopter starts getting a little sinky, a lot of times what we can do is we can give it just a tap of collective. And again, we're just trying to keep it that nice controlled speed all the way down. Now, this is the part I hate. This is the bit where Flight Sim is going to start taking the controls from you because it's going to assume it knows what you're trying to do. But all we're trying to do is get up over to it, and then we're going to settle down onto it. And there's Flight Sim doing what Flight Sim does best. Nope. Let's try that one again. Gotta love these, the gusts. The gusts are very real. All right, so our mistake for that one, of course, is as we were getting very, very close to the approach, the Flight Sim decided that there was something kind of close, which means we're going to have to come in a different way. Now, I don't want to do it this way because this way is a lot more dangerous for us because, like I said, we're going to be descending here. So what I'm going to do instead of our original approach, which was working pretty darn well, is that we're basically going to have to position ourselves over it, and then we're going to have to settle down onto it, which is a combination of everything bad. One thing, of course, is very difficult to see when we do things like that. And, of course, the other issue that we're going to face when we do stuff like that is the fact that we're going to be descending into our own turbulence, as I've said probably 5 times so far in this video. And in the real world, that's dangerous. In Flight Sim, they don't care so much. So, of course, if you're learning some DCS skills here, this would be a good lesson in things not to do. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and give ourselves a very, very gentle descent. I'm just going to kind of pay attention to the obstacles around me. And we're just going to let the helicopter come down. Holy smokes. This thing is, so one of the problems I have is I have no collective. I have a throttle, and the 1 millimeter of collective that you need to do this safely is just not accessible on a typical throttle. Nice. So the key thing here is when you are taking off from really, really tight spots, like our little kind of a doomed zone here, we have to remember that we can't overheat anything and we really can't get going until we're well clear of the obstacle. The second thing, of course, is when we're doing our approach into this area, because of some of the terrain that we had here, is we basically had to do the opposite. But the key thing is trying to keep a little bit of forward motion and keeping everything slow will make it a successful landing. Enjoy.